Thank you, everybody. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. And I am very grateful for everybody who took their time out to really come out and just learn a little bit about work, passion, life balance. And just to give you guys an incentive, thank you for being here. If you do answer a question or have any interactions while we're presenting, you get a free copy of the book. And because I'm a product of the 80s, if you're silent the whole time and ignore me, you still get a copy of the book. So everybody here, we're going to do a little signing if you want it signed. But anyway, this is my book, and this is what I'm going to talk about today. Now, before we get started, who here has the perfect life that they could have ever imagined? Okay. Who wants to have more life satisfaction in their life today? All right, good, good. And last question, if as an entrepreneur, do you feel you fit in the term work-life balance? Does that term fit you or not? Let's hear it, yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes? All right. Well, I'm going to challenge you guys and challenge you to think about work-life as an option, but work-passion-life balance as the better option to really maximize your life. And I'm going to go in a little bit. My book talks about my journey over the past 15 years. And it really is a philosophy of a lot of mistakes, a lot of successes, but really in true EO fashion, it's my experience share. It's one long experience share over 15 years. And I'm hoping that as the experience share, you're going to kind of take a few truths away at the end of this. So you might be questioning, okay, I've heard work-life balance, but what is this work-passion-life balance? Did I add a word accidentally, or was it, intended? And so really, I want to start with my story. And as of today, if you were to look at my life today, I think that I have a great life in terms of picture. So I have everything going on in this picture, and it's a lot of things going on. But, between the ownership of the businesses, being a doctor, branding, EO, podcast, I have a lot of things going on. But underneath it all, as of today, I care more about the relationships in my life. And so over the past 15 years, I've taken that philosophy of focusing on the relationships and modified that. So my wife, my kids, the EO board, which I think somebody got cut off there. You guys are my family. You're the relationships I love being around. My business, USA Staffing, my investments, Ucruit. But really, it's the people behind the pictures that really represent how satisfied you are with life. And so in this talk, I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey, but then I'm going to show you a philosophy that you can check in with yourself to really understand, where is my balance? And so I'm going to give you that tool in the form of a workshop. And so I'm going to talk for about 10 minutes. We're going to do the workshop for about 10 minutes, and then we'll have the question and answer. So I want to respect your time. Hopefully we get out of here even a little bit early. So in traditional EO fashion, I'm going to start with the lifeline experience or lifeline exercise, because really, in order to understand why I came up with the philosophy, you have to understand what I had to go through and some of the mistakes. And even though they're kind of more detailed in there, a lot of funny stories, I'm just going to give you kind of the short version, which actually isn't that short. But 2006 is when I started my first real business, Superior Business Staffing. It was also the same time I started medical school. I did medical school for 4 years. I got married in 2009 to the first time. 2010 is when I started USA Staffing Services. And at that time, I got divorced in 2012. So in a matter of about 6 years, I went through some really big life-changing events that really started to question, why am I not managing my life well? What am I doing wrong? Or if I'm doing anything wrong. In 2013, I commit to the fact that I'm going to be a doctor. I thought for my life, I've been working towards being a doctor since I was 5 years old. In 2013, I thought I grew big enough. I wanted to sell 51%, be that partner, but really focus on my doctoring. So I got into a very prestigious pulmonary fellowship, which is a 3-year commitment. And within 6 months, I felt that emptiness in my stomach. I wasn't productive in anything I was doing. I lost my sense of self. And how many people in here have ever done that? Made a decision you thought was the right decision, but then you realize, oh, That one hurt. That one, I thought it was the right path, but it wasn't. And so I had to make a tough decision. And in 2015, in really January 3rd, 2015, I remember the conversation very clear. It's the very first time I considered myself an entrepreneur. Before then, I had businesses. I was a business owner. I was starting things. I was billing. I was doing things. I was making placements. But I never considered myself an entrepreneur. I was doing it for the money to pay those medical school loans, those undergrad loans, maybe even buy a house with the profits. But in 2015, when I actually sold 51% of the business, I realized, wait a minute. I think I need to reevaluate where my life is. I need to reevaluate where I spend my time. I need to reevaluate where I spend my relationships with. And so what happened in 2015 was ultimately life-changing. I actually quit the fellowship, moved down to Tampa. I brought my then new girlfriend down as just dating. We started another business, which ended up failing. But then we ended up getting married. And in 2017, we actually shut down the business that we started with her. So you can see I start businesses, I start relationships, and some of them work, some of them don't. I can write a whole book on just the failures, but that's not the point of this exercise. In 2018, Hannah was born. In 2020, my son was born. And really, in next year, I'm starting this personal brand. And so I'm really excited about it. But I only tell you that as the exercise to kind of tell you where I've been over the past 15 years. And really, what the philosophy is when I looked at my life during those 15 years, I never fit in with work-life balance. How many people in here can work 80 hours on your business and never feel like you work even an hour in the week? How many people in here get more energy when you're working on the business and less energy when you're doing something very boring? And you actually feel more drained from working a few hours on something you don't like to do than 80 hours on your business. And so that was kind of got my wheels thinking, because in medical school and residency, when I was running the business, I loved patient care. And I love the business. And so naturally, people were asking me, Matt, how are you working so much? Why are you spending so much time working? And oftentimes my response was, oh, this week I only worked 2 or 3 hours, but I was in the hospital for 50 and I was in the business for 40, but I only worked 2 of those hours. The rest of it was fun. It was exciting. I was problem solving the world's problem when it came to staffing and recruiting. I was learning how to care from kids to adults. I was getting people better. I was filling myself up with energy, and yet people still really couldn't understand. And I think this problem is even more highlighted in 2020 with the COVID type of shutdown. One of the things that happened this year was that people actually were forced to stay home. They were forced to maybe not even work. And what happened was total shock to me, and I should have known better. But what so many people happen is when they had a chance to have a relationship with themselves, they didn't know who they were. They were anxious. They were depressed. They were sad. When they looked in the mirror, they didn't have a relationship with themselves. And I believe that that's the reason for a lot of this anxiety, depression, kind of anger that's been happening over the past 9-10 months. When I look at work, passion, life balance, the philosophy is really simple. If you take every relationship you have in your life, every interaction you have, you can group it into 3 main categories. The first is work. And I classify work as the relationships where you're giving energy. And so it's a net negative of energy. Passion are those events, those things that actually give you energy. They give you life. They give you motivation. They're happy. They fill you up and make you happy and really, excited to be alive. And then the last one is life. And life, to me, is the relationships that are mutually beneficial. It's the people you share those day-to-day experiences with that you give and they give. And you're not losing energy. You're not gaining energy. It's that mutually beneficial life. And I believe that we're good at work. We can work long hours. And even for argument's sake, we can really do a good job with life relationships. We can social media, message people. We can go out for drinks. We can give and take. You're not giving too much, but you're not getting too much either. And so it's an equal exchange. But where people really struggle, and where the point of the philosophy is that you have to have a relationship with yourself to do things by yourself that make you happy, that fill you up with energy so that you can give more to the work and more to life. And I have a really simple trick that I hope you guys can all take away with this. So examples of work, employer-employee standard, but it doesn't have to be, but that's the typical kind of arrangement. Even a parent-child. How many people have a 10-month-old right now? I do. And that is hard work. I love him, but at this time, in this current state of our relationship, I have to put more energy into him than he's given back. Nothing against it. It's part of life. And eventually, when he grows up, when he gets a little bit bigger, that relationship changes, and that's okay. But currently today, when he gets up in the middle of the night, when he's, needs diaper changes and everything, it's a lot of work. It's tiring. You feel tired. And the smiles he gives you, the smiles, the cooing, the happiness he brings is good, but it might not be as much to cancel out the energy you put into it. And also the last thing is volunteering. People who may not have a job, they can still give their time. They can give their energy to volunteering as an example. But anything you do, whenever you think about a relationship with anybody, it's really, what is that relationship like currently? That passion is those hobbies, interests, but it's more than just a once-a-year fishing trip. It's more than you plant tomato plants and then you forget to water them. That's not the passion I'm talking about. It's the idea that you love something so much that you're going to YouTube how to do it better. You're going to read a book about how to grow plants better. You're going to learn about the intricacies of wine tasting and all the different flavors you can taste, because that's a hobby. That's something that you really fills you up, and the knowledge of that is something that you seek out. But also other activities that can give you energy. So if you like surfing, if you like fishing, that's another example. It's really more than just a hobby, though. So try to get away from that. And then really, if you just kind of phrase it as, what do you love doing by yourself without anybody else there? It's the relationship you have with yourself. So it might just be as simple as reading a good book. And then the last thing is life. So friends, these could be colleagues, and it could be anybody with similar interests. So in 2015, remember when on my first slide I said I identified myself as an entrepreneur, and I give 100% of that credit actually to Miss Laura Webb, because I saw her at the Inc. 500, and she was the first person that introduced me to the concept, the idea, the group of EO. And I was just, after that conference, I was super excited. And I was finally around the people that kind of gave me energy. I love being with this group. That's why I'm so honored to be here today. But really, it's about the relationships. I can't stress this enough. It's about the relationships. So in our workshop, I'm going to go through it a little bit. So with that being said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the efficiencies that I found in the system, and then we're going to do the workshop. And so I want to make sure that you guys start thinking about the relationships in your life as we're talking through this. So if you were to put the work, passion, and life in this Venn diagram, the areas that overlap between any two circles is called the zone of efficiency. And so what the zones of efficiency are is it's the work relationships that you do have that kind of mutually beneficial part at times. It's those activities you love doing that you actually have people that are mutually beneficial. Now here's the trick. I hope everybody's listening to this exact point. The more overlap you have between any two circles, the bigger the middle section grows. You cannot, by any law of physics, increase the zone of life satisfaction, which is the overlap of all three, manually or by choice. The only way you can do that is by increasing the individual three zones of life satisfaction. Think about the relationships in your life and think about who sit in the zones of efficiency and take those relationships a little bit more seriously. And so it's really just an idea of, if you go out once a week, who are you going to spend your time with at that dinner? And or if you're going out once a month, who are you spending that time with? And by choosing the people you spend time with appropriately, you can start maximizing your life satisfaction. And so this is the example of kind of a standard look that's in the book, but it doesn't have to overlap, right? Think about people who are totally, not satisfied. They're super unhappy. They're the ones that are following videos and making those rude comments all the time, those trolls that are watching videos. Everybody has them. But really, something is not connected. And part it might be is that they just never realized that there's that connection between them. Now, you can also have it where you're so obsessed with work that you're working 80 hours and you don't like it, and it's a hobby that you don't like. And we see this all the time where people just up and quit. And then they go out and start a photography business, or they go start a wine business. You know, they start something that's totally off kilter of where they were because they finally get to the point, their breaking point, that actually allows them to recalibrate and identify that they need to make a change. And so the zone of life satisfaction can be enhanced through those zones of efficiencies, but you have to pay attention. Here's a great example of an opportunity where if you have a small overlap compared to a big overlap, how you can see the increase in relationships. And so as part of the workshop, we're actually going to do this. And I'm going to show you the 3 steps it's going to take to do that. So with everybody ready to do the workshop now, you can take out your piece of paper and a pen. And I'm going to walk through the 3 steps, and I actually have some examples of my life. And what I would challenge you to do is think about the people that you spent time with over the last 2 weeks. You can take 1 week, you can take 2 weeks, you can take a month. The bigger the population, the more data you're going to get. The first step is identifying your passion. So write down the thing that you like to do that makes you tick, that gives you energy, that you can't stop thinking about when you're doing it, and makes, you know, when you're doing it, people actually say like, hey, you're happy today. Hey, you're in a good mood. What'd you do? So identify 1 or 2 things that you consider a passion. All right, so my answer was, as I mentioned, in 2015 was the first time I identified as an entrepreneur. And when I think of the things that really make me tick, entrepreneurship in general, being around you guys are what really makes me tick. But the other one is medical care. So I'm not throwing out the fact that I'm a doctor and just ignoring it. I actually truly like caring for patients. What I don't like is insurance. I don't like the regulations. I don't like certain aspects of the job, but I love the patient care. And so for anybody who knows me in the room, I've actually created a life around my medical career where I can choose to take care of the patients without having to worry about those insurance claims, without having a fixed schedule 50 hours a week in the hospital. I get to take the benefits of what I like to do and maximize those benefits. So whatever your answer is, keep it to yourself. But now that you've identified it, the next step is to list those people. And so I challenge you 7 days, literally list out everybody you've interacted with over the past 7 days. You can do abbreviated during this workshop, but when you do it at home or when you recheck in with yourself on a monthly basis or every once in a while, the bigger the list you make really reflects where your time is at. Where are you spending your time? And so as you do that, I'm going to just list out all of the people in my example. So now if you were to list out those people and put them in a Venn diagram, what would it look like? How many of those people you listed were just in a primary? How many of them were in a primary and a secondary? How many of those zones of efficiency were you able to utilize without thinking about it? And now the next question is, based on your individual diagram, based on your list, based on your life satisfaction, are there ways that you can consider improving that? Can you spend time differently, spend energy differently to maximize your life satisfaction through the management of your own relationships? So as you guys think about that, I want to also tell you that this is something that changes over time. I kind of did an example when I was in undergrad. Of course, undergrad, you have the best of friends. You have no work responsibilities. You know, life is great. In 2011, I was working at the hospital, but I was also starting the businesses. I didn't have much life. I actually lost track of friends. I didn't call my parents. I got divorced during this time because I didn't even invest in the person I lived with. And so to me, I was way off kilter. And I take 100% blame for being off kilter because I was so focused on the business that I was growing and the patient care I was doing. I was not balanced, even though I thought I was, because I wasn't putting any effort into mutually beneficial relationships. In 2015, you know, kind of is very similar, but what was off kilter here was that passion component. So this is right before I identified as an entrepreneur. Right before right after I gave up that business, I had no passion in my life. I did a little bit, but it wasn't the way it was. And so I considered the pulmonary fellowship more work than the passion it was giving. So it was more me giving more energy than receiving it. But in 2020, and as I was writing this book, I really started the process of self-discovery. And I started the book in 2019, published in 2020. But really, I consider it, amazing, especially because when I do my lists, almost everybody's in those zones of efficiencies. I know I have a limited amount of time, and I want to give as much as I can to other people, and I just choose who I spend those times with. So with that further ado, we have about 4 minutes of question and answer, and then we're going to do a book signing for anybody who wants a free copy of the book and the signature. So love to answer some questions.
Could you go back one slide?
Sure.
It was really amazing. Like, look at the Venn diagram, the first one and the last one. It's like they're both integrated, but today it's larger.
Yes.
The sweet spot is larger.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that. It's like in full circle to something that was almost intuitive in the beginning.
Right.
That you've lost through the process of becoming through work, responsibilities.
Well, it changes, right? In college, you don't have a family, you don't have kids, you don't have, I didn't have employees at that time. And so at that time, there weren't that many relationships. If you think about when you're in college, you have your parents, you have your brothers or sisters, you have your fraternity brothers, you have your college classmates. That's it. And so, there wasn't much opportunity for overlap, really. And so while it was balanced and while I had good relationships in all of them, I wasn't consciously growing those zones of efficiency. And so the difference here is that when I do I took it out of this one, but when I do my own Venn diagram, 99% of the relationships are in the zones of efficiency. And so that's why I just love life. I mean, I cannot imagine a better life right now. I am extremely blessed, but more importantly, I just wake up excited every day for who I am. And so I consider myself, very satisfied with my life.
You have a busy life.
Yeah.
Do you have a personal stillness practice, a meditative practice?
Not right now. Not right now.
Yeah. The going does it for you.
It does. Yeah. It gives me so that's a great example. Maybe meditation or stillness actually gives you energy, and so that could be something that you can consider as a passion or a hobby. But for me, it doesn't. There is a lot of value there. But I can't, with all the relationships in my life, I can't fit that one in right now. Yes?
So just talk about your perspective on the notion of boundaries. Conventional wisdom is set boundaries and make them clearly defined.
Yeah, I think that, and that really goes with the work-life balance, right? In the book I talk about how did we come up with a 40-hour work week? Does anybody know how you come up with a 40-hour work week? You sleep 8 hours. You want to be home for 8 hours, and you want to work for 8 hours a day. And so the idea of 8-hour shifts, 5 days a week, was something that they thought was a well-balanced life. You would work for 8 hours, you would be home for 8 hours, and then you would sleep for 8 hours. It's something that's crazy. Why not 39 hours? Why not 45 hours? I think the challenge that I feel is that when you think about work life as the boundaries, are you at the job, are you working, or are you living? That never worked for me. And so I think the whole idea of the work, passion, life balance with the Venn diagram is that there really could be less barriers than there were in traditional models. I think that it's fluid. So in some cases, like some weeks, you might have to work more on the business. You might have to crunch numbers at the end of the year, financials. You might have to put in a lot of time selflessly in the business for a period of time. But then the next month, you get a chance to take a 2-week vacation with your family, and now you're spending all your time with your family and your friends and enjoying it that way. And so I think it's a fluid, and it's a snapshot in time of where your past 7 days, past 14 days, where you've been spending your time. So I consider it more of a check-in, kind of a ongoing fluid situation more than anything. But the other thing is with working from home and virtual everything, I think boundaries are going to be going away for a lot of people. So, any other questions? All right, very good. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. And if you'd like a book, I'd be happy to give it to you and sign it if you're interested. So, thank you.